This is Algebra 1, Lesson 13a, Multiple Symbols of Inclusion. It includes examples 13.1 and 13.2. For the first problem here that we're going to look at, you can see that we've got parentheses, so those are symbols of inclusion, and we've also got brackets. So when you have more than one set of symbols of inclusion, where do you start? Well, you start on the inside, as far on the inside as you can go, okay? So you have these brackets that's inside of the expression, but inside of those brackets, you have these parentheses. So we're going to start with the parentheses, and we're going to simplify that. And we're going to copy everything else down because everything else stays. It's important to do that so you don't lose anything. Negative 2 minus 4 is like negative 2 plus a negative 4, so that's going to be negative 6. Now we don't need those parentheses anymore because we don't have anything being multiplied by them. A lot of times at this point, they may change those brackets to parentheses. This book does not, but just a heads up there if you're using a different book. Here we're going to look at the order of operations again and notice that we've got the brackets, so we can do those, and then we'll copy everything else down. Negative 6 minus 3 is like negative 6 plus a negative 3, so that's negative 9. And notice I left the brackets because we have an indicated multiplication right here. So now I can do this multiplication. Negative 3 times negative 9 is positive 27. And then I bring down the minus 2, and that's equal to 25. Okay, and your book says they're added because they're looking at it as 27 plus a negative 2, which again is the same as subtracting. So here's an example, and we will also here start with the symbols of inclusion as far on the inside as we can. So wow, we've got a lot of them. So you've got these braces, you've got these brackets, and then you've got the parentheses. So let's start with the parentheses on the inside. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to go ahead and do these parentheses as well. I believe the book does that as well. Yes. All right, so here we're going to copy down everything else. And then we have something in parentheses is going to go there. And we answer what we underlined in parentheses. Negative 3 minus 2 is negative 5. Negative 7 plus 4. Signs are different, so we're going to need to subtract those and get a 3. Take the sign of the one with the largest absolute value, which would be the 7, so that means it's negative. Now, we still have grouping symbols or symbols of inclusion. These symbols, these parentheses, just indicate multiplication. There's nothing we can do inside of them. Here we would go next with the bracket. And inside of that bracket, would we do this multiplication first or the subtraction? Well, we would have to do the multiplication. We know that we do multiplications before we do additions, and subtraction is just adding the opposite, right? So we're going to do inside of those brackets just this multiplication. So I'm going to copy everything else down. Negative 5 times negative 3 is a positive 15. Again, I still have these brackets, but now I can actually do what's in these brackets. So let's copy everything else down. 15 minus 5 is 10. Inside the brackets, there's nothing else I can simplify. 10 is as simple as it gets. Right next to the brackets, we have this indicated multiplication. That's why I left the brackets there. So I can go ahead and do that multiplication. Now I have an indicated multiplication here. So I'm going to multiply before I add this negative 2. And now I can do 80 minus 2, or adding a negative 2, and that's going to be 78. Example 2. we have a fraction. This is one giant symbol of inclusion here because we have to deal with the numerator and the denominator before we can deal with that division. So in the numerator, I'm going to start in here and do this, and we'll just copy everything else down. And in the denominator, I would go ahead and do this. I'm kind of treating it like two separate problems. There's an expression in the numerator, an expression in the denominator. 4 minus 2 is 2. Okay. And the negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. Okay. And we really don't need those parentheses anymore because there's no multiplication, is there? But we do have an indicated multiplication here. Okay. Inside of those braces. So we've got negative 3, and then inside the braces, and then we have an indicated multiplication down here also, so that's negative 6. And I'm going to go back up to this part. Negative 5 times negative 2 is positive 10. Okay, now I can multiply the numerator out. Negative 3 times the positive 10 is negative 30. And we have a negative 6 in the denominator. I can treat that like a fraction and simplify it, or I can remember that that fraction bar is a division. So it just means negative 30 divided by negative 6, which is equal to positive 5.